He's gonna make it clear. Did you know? Come on, listen here. Did you know?
Welcome to the Did You Know Show. My name is Brian Green. I am so happy to be here today. The Did You Know Show is centered around connecting you to home, community, and business resources that you ordinarily wouldn't know about. And this is my first show after my diabetic incident. And how fitting it is that I have a friend that's been on my radio show several times, but in a lot of ways has become kind of a real hallmark of information. And I'm happy to have on the show with me Dr. Ronald Renzi and Spencer Sumter. And then later on in the show, we're going to be talking to Dr. Marvin Maslin. And they are going to really lead us through the complications of diabetics. And they're also going to talk about, Dr. Ron Renzi's been a practicing podiatrist for 30 years plus. But he has come up with this, he's the founder and director of this super duper community outreach, Save Your Souls, as in Save Your Foot Souls. His mission is to address the high lower extremity amputations, particularly in the black community as a result of diabetic complications. And so I'm just happy to have him. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Ron Renzi.
Thank you for coming. This is great, wonderful show.
I'm happy to have you. And then one of his patients who has come on also, Spencer Sumter from Glenside, PA, to come on and share his story. So just to get started, Dr. Ron, tell us a little bit about your practice, if you don't mind.
So it's a general podiatry practice, but really I concentrate a lot on diabetics because diabetics have a lot of problems with their feet. So we try to provide good, high quality diabetic foot care to prevent further complications.
i.e. lower extremity amputations.
Yes, unfortunately, diabetics can have problems that lead to amputations of toes or even more. So we're trying to prevent that by having regular foot care to prevent those type problems from developing.
And then with the foot care, a lot of what we've talked about before we got started, we probably could have had a show on the outtakes of this episode because, you know, between Spencer and I sharing our stories, and then you really knowing and statistically seeing, from you, I learned that a great deal of amputations are going on in the Chester City part down in Delaware County.
Yes.
The most probably in the state of Pennsylvania, statistically. And so a lot of that I think has to do with the fact that diabetics, some, probably a lot more than they should, don't really pay attention to it. Or it may go undiagnosed for a long period of time, or you don't correct the challenges that kind of instigate a diabetic episode. And so when I started the show, I will share with people, I am a type 2 diabetic. I was diagnosed back in October 2006. And I can tell you, as a black man, I'm black, you see. As a black man, I used to drink 2-liter cranberry sodas, cranberry ginger ale and blackberry ginger ale sodas like they were going out of style. And I used to break out in the sweats when I'm eating. I used to be really fatigued. Sometimes I'd be irritable at different points of the day. And I'd had really these different kind of up and downs through the course of the day. And when I went finally for a physical, just to really get a physical, they tested my sugar, and my A1C was over 12 at that point. My sugar was way out of whack. And then they came to questions, do you have a family history of diabetes and that kind of thing? Just recently, I had a situation where I had developed what they call a perirectal abscess, which led me, first to urgent care, and then from urgent care, it didn't fix the problem. We went to the ER, and I was admitted. Shout out to the Jefferson Hospital over in Washington Township. Those guys are wonderful. And, what it led to was a day of reckoning. My sugar, again, was over 12. They had to do what they call a kind of a incision and drain, and that led to a week in the hospital. And now, I'm paying attention to a lot of different things with diabetes. And with me, I share my story so that I know somebody out there needs to hear it, that, unfortunately, I did not go to my doctor's appointments as I should. I wasn't checking my sugar as I should. And oftentimes, I really kind of was dismissive of the different things that was going on in my body. But luckily for me, this did get dealt with. It came pretty close to being sepsis. But I did find out that diabetics are a lot more prone to having these abscesses and that kind of thing. And so before we started the show, the whole idea was to really, talk about how do we address lowering the lower extremity amputations, particularly in the black male community. But I had a chance to meet one of Dr. Ron Renzi's patients, Spencer Sumter. And Spencer, you have a story, since I revealed my situation, what really led you, first of all, to Dr. Renzi?
Well, let's see. I was diagnosed with diabetes in 2008.
I was diagnosed in October 2006. Keep going.
Right. So I actually was visiting a friend out in Wilkes-Barre.
Okay.
And I went to a restaurant, ate anything I wanted to eat.
Sounds familiar.
I got sick about an hour or so after I finished eating. And I laid down. I went back to the house and laid down. And I guess the next day I woke up, I was feeling a little better. I went home, and for the next 6 days, I couldn't keep any food, any water, anything down.
Oh, wow.
And so, that long story short, really, by the 7th day, I was laying down, I woke up, and I couldn't see anything.
Oh, wow.
Everything was blurry. It's like I was looking into a cloud, And so I went to stand up and I fell to my knees. I hadn't had any food or any drink in me for 6 days. I just thought it was a flu that I was going to work off after a few days. And so I had to climb up the steps, my basement steps, and I crawled through the hallway. I got to my sister's room, and I pulled myself up off the doorknob of her door. I knocked on the door, and she opened it up, and I collapsed in her arms.
Oh, wow.
I then woke up in the hospital, and they told me I had diabetes. And so I was trying to figure, how. How did I have diabetes? It didn't seem like it ran in my family like that.
If you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I am 34.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
So you're in the hospital now. They tell you have diabetes. I can tell you how I felt after they admitted me to the hospital. I felt helpless. I felt like for me it was really no excuse because I think we both share that to some degree. For me, I knew I was a type 2 diabetic since October 2006. I kind of let it ride, and so for me, I'm a single guy. I pretty much eat like most people, what they want, when they want, how they want, and whether that's late at night, something simple as a couple scoops of ice cream during Law and Order, or that's my deal. A nice bowl of popcorn with some butter. All the really when I look at my diet, I don't really eat as much protein as I'm supposed to eat and that kind of thing. But like you, I have had some symptoms that I probably just had a tone deaf situation. So now you're admitted in the hospital. They tell you got diabetes. Now what? So what happens next?
So they start showing me what I'm gonna have to do basically for the rest of my life. So they're telling me about how to take the insulin and testing blood sugar. They set me up with a nutritionist. Mm-hmm. And in my head, I'm just like, wow.
It's a lot.
Yeah, a lot to take in.
Were you, if I can just ask you a personal question, were you somebody, because I wasn't, that was going for regular physicals and that kind of a deal?
No, because even though I ate what I wanted, I stayed in the gym. I was actually always in the gym.
Okay.
I worked out, I swam, I kickboxed,
okay.
I jogged, I did everything. I played ball, I played football. I really always worked out. So I just said to myself, I can't believe that even though I was eating what I wanted, I still was pretty healthy. I wasn't overweight. I was 198 pounds. I just couldn't understand,
What's going on?
Right.
And so your body maybe...
And so I was told that what ended up happening was I did get a flu. That it was rare at the time. It attacked my pancreas and my kidneys, lowered my immune system.
Oh, wow.
And that's how I actually got diabetes.
And so then...
And they said at that time they had only heard of 3 cases that they had heard of where that had actually happened.
So what has happened since then, if you don't mind sharing?
Since then, I've worked pretty hard trying to take care of my diabetes, changing my diet, things that I drink, things that I eat, regularly exercising.
Before we
But
started the show, Spencer, we both had in common that you was drinking the 2
Yes.
liter
Yes.
cranberry
Yes.
ginger ale also.
Yes.
I just wanted don't forget that.
Yes.
Don't leave me out there by myself. But keep going.
Yes. I did have a lot of issues with the ginger ale. That was
Weakness.
that's my weakness. It was never cakes,
Okay.
pies, the sweet stuff. Never been a real salt eater. I don't add salt to anything. Never have.
Okay.
So my biggest thing really was the ginger ale soda. And like you, no cups. Just open the bottle and drink it. And you know, although I didn't drink 2 or 3 or 4
liters, right? I was out of control.
But I drank. That was always my biggest thing, the soda.
And so, have you had any complications since being diagnosed? I mean, how's that ride been? What we do both share is, as now diabetic, as diagnosed diabetics, we are charged with testing your blood sugar throughout the course of the day. And like most people, I don't like to stick my finger on my arm or anything like that. I've gotten the scanner,
Yeah.
the freestyle scanner that I change every 14 days. But that seems to work out better for me because I can. As we said, off the show, we had so much conversation that you can scan it, an unlimited amount of times.
Many times as you need.
So what else has been your experience?
So my biggest issue has been my feet.
Okay. And what has happened? I mean.
So I actually went away to New Orleans in 2019
Okay.
in June. And so I went there, had a great time, and I came back and I happened to notice, I had a blister, I had a blister on this foot,
Okay.
my right foot. And so I went to the Med Express, and basically I told them, and they took a look at it, and they prescribed me some antibiotics. It had a little smell and everything like that. There was discharge. And so about a week, they said, come back if in a week. It hasn't gone away. It hasn't gotten better. Mm-hmm. And so after a week, I was at work. My foot was so swollen. It was in the shoe, and I was working, and I couldn't walk. It was so uncomfortable. And I said, you know what? I left work early. I went over to the hospital. I got there. They took a look at it. They said, oh, no, yes. So they kept me. They started pumping all kinds of different antibiotics in me. And they said it was very infected. And days later, they then told me that it looks like they're going to have to do surgery. And they're going to have to amputate the toe.
Oh,
and,
wow.
That was tough.
I bet.
And what made it worse is, after I got the surgery done, it was supposed to be, better. 3 days later, they were then telling me that they didn't get all the infection, and that it was possible I may have to lose my foot.
Lord have mercy.
And so, in my head, I'm thinking, what else more could I have done? I thought I did the right thing.
Right.
And
yeah, it's been tough.
It's been rough.
So then the hospital referred you to Dr. Ron Renzi, and he's been a wealth of knowledge, and his practice is one of the best practices I know about.
He has been amazing.
He is. I've had him on my show.
The whole crew here has been amazing. God sent for me.
And what kind of keeps uncovering itself, you and I, before today, didn't know each other, but we kind of feel connected because our stories were kind of so similar. When I got admitted to the hospital, they pumped me full of antibiotics too. My sugar was out of whack. My A1C was 12 plus. And I don't mind sharing that with folks because I feel like, after this season really of being hospitalized, I've had so many men, white and black, and people of all shades call me to offer, best wishes. But I've had a number of men share with me that they got diabetes or congestive heart failure or they're on dialysis. And for me now, I've been on this kick, Dr. Ron, about men's health. Particularly black and brown men, because for a lot of reasons historically we don't go to the hospital regularly. And so just sitting here talking to this other, brother, if you will, I felt like, wow, I didn't really know him, but his story was just so similar to mine. Now, I haven't had the unfortunate, disfortune of an amputee situation, but if I didn't change things right away, then what do you change? That's kind of where we are. So then we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back on the other side. We're going to continue our conversation with Dr. Ron Renzi. You're going to give us all kinds of diabetic advice. Later on in the show, we're going to bring in Dr. Marvin Marcelin, who's a ball of energy and with his bow ties. And then I'm going to be a patient later on in the show. So stay tuned. Don't go away. We're going to have more information on how to avoid lower extremity amputations.
Did you know?
Always Best Care specializes in helping seniors who wish to remain in their home but need assistance. Our flexible care programs vary from hourly to live-in. Simply put, we're there when you need us. And Always Best Care is an approved Community Health Choices provider. Call today and we'll meet with you to develop a personalized care plan. Always Best Care Senior Services, doing more, caring more, and dedicated to exceeding your expectations. Always.
Always Best Care is a great place to work. Flexibility,
leadership, purpose,
great benefits.
There's never a dull moment.
Diversity, inclusion, compasión.
We love our jobs. If you're looking for a great place to work, you can join our compassionate Team Green. You can apply online at teamgreenabc.com or call 267-909-9248.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Did you know?
Welcome back to the Did You Know Show. I want to remind our viewers that you can catch me on radio on Saturdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on WURDradio.com. The Did You Know Show, again, is centered around connecting people to home, community, business resources that you ordinarily wouldn't know about. Today's show is sponsored by Always Best Care Senior Services. We provide in-home care primarily to seniors. But if you're somebody that has had a hip, knee replacement, back injury, if you're a recent amputee that needs help in the home, think about Always Best Care first. As we continue our conversation with Spencer Sumter of Glenside, PA, and Dr. Ronald Renzi, podiatrist, Spencer, when we go off to off takes, some things that you said that I want you to kind of reset yourself and tell us, when you got admitted to the hospital, your sugar was 650, and then what? You realized, what were you going through? You were kind of describing what was the situation.
Well, basically, when I realized I was sick as I bought a big old platter of fruit.
Okay.
And basically, I thought that eating a bunch of the fruit, the vitamins and all the stuff that's in it, would help fight the flu.
Right.
And sipping warm water and everything like that. And what I was really doing was raising my blood sugar. Mm-hmm. So I had diabetes. I didn't know I had it. And I couldn't keep anything down. I couldn't keep water down. I couldn't keep the fruit. So every time I ate a piece of fruit, I brought it back up. I took a sip of water. I bring it back up. But the sugar was still staying in my body.
Right.
So it was raising my blood sugar. So when I got there and, I woke up and they told me my blood sugar was 650. And I had diabetes. I should have been in a diabetic coma.
Wow.
They told me. So.
Well, thank God that you're still here.
Yes.
And that you live to tell the story to a lot of people that need to hear it. This show for me is a very personal show because I am a type 2 diabetic that for a very long time I was diagnosed at the top of the show. I told you October 2006. I never forget the first time I went shopping after my diagnosis and I started reading the labels for everything that I like cranberry juice, the different juices. And I am, like you, a fruit lover. But the fruit that I love has the most sugar: pineapples, watermelon, grapes, all kinds of different things that, you can eat in moderation, but you have to eat and balance it off. Dr. Ron, take us through it. So you've heard the confessions of two. I'm a type 2 diabetic. I don't know if you're type 2, type 1. Type 1, type 2
and
diabetes.
They basically diagnosed it as brittle because I can go up or down just like that.
Wow.
Easy. Which is why with this guy, I test.
You two have a scanner.
Long.
I don't know if the camera can see it, but you have a scanner.
Yes.
You got a scanner, and I have the same one on this arm, and I alternate every 14 days. You have to change it, and that's an alternative for us diabetics, as opposed to sticking your finger all of the time throughout the course of the day. you can opt to have a sensor. And with the sensor, you can, with either your phone, I feel like I'm giving a commercial for them, but with either your phone or the sensor that they give you, you can run it across and find out what your sugar is at that point in time. Dr. Ron, you've heard us. Is this something that you hear all the time?
Yes, yes, yes. Diabetics can have this happen frequently. When you have diabetes, you're much more prone to an infection, and you're more prone to that infection getting to be a deep or a serious infection than people who don't have diabetes. So that's what happened to both of you. Your infection started out something simple, but got deep inside and then had to be addressed. And his infection got into his bone in his toe and it had to be removed. So we hear this all the time, and this is why we advocate for regular foot care, so we prevent these things from developing into serious infection. We try to find little irritations and things like that before they develop into something serious. So we try to have the patient come in every couple months so we can examine their foot, check their circulation, check their sensation. Diabetes affects the sensation of your foot. You lose sensation. So sometimes you don't notice that you're getting a little sore here and there. So we try to kind of act proactively and spot those things and prevent them from getting into a serious infection.
In the beginning, when we were talking earlier, one thing that you keep reminding us, and we agree, is that there is a high potential for black and brown men, to really have this versus women. Why?
Yes. We do know that black men suffer major amputations, a leg, 3 times more than white men in this area. Black men have a lot of diabetes, right? The proportion of diabetes in the black community is 20%, whereas in the white community it's only 10%. So 10% of the white community around here in the Delaware Valley has diabetes, but 20% of the black community.
Wow.
And then we know that black men will present to an emergency room with gangrene of their foot more than any other group, because they get diabetes and it develops into that serious infection. And then, like we talked about, they don't tend to go to the doctor as quickly, and they wait and wait and wait, and then it's a serious problem. Women seem to act much quicker. If they have a problem, they seem to go to the doctor much more quickly. And we know that because when we look at the statistics, women hardly ever show up into an emergency room with gangrene. Men, that's where and then what happens if you show up with gangrene in an emergency room? It has to be removed. So that's what happens. So we know black men are all men are reluctant to go to doctors. We know this throughout the world. In Italy, men have more amputations than women.
Wow.
In England, it's the same way. So we know men tend not to go to doctors and take care of their problems.
We have discussed this before, that men more than women. Obviously more men of color, but just men in general have more of experience of amputees, lower extremity amputees, because we wait to the last minute. And so when you're talking about gangrene, that's kind of gangrene. What is gangrene?
Gangrene is death. When tissue's actually starting to die, it turns black, kind of gets an odor. It's actually death of tissue. And it usually has to be removed or it will spread, so we have to remove that, and that results in an amputation. And we know men don't take care of things because we can look at the statistics, and men show up in the emergency room with gangrene more than women. And we know black men more than white men. Black men really wait till the very end. And there's some history for that, but we do know that from the statistics, black men show up in the emergency room with gangrene more than any other group, more than black women, more than white women or white men. So, and that's why one of the reasons they suffer more amputations, because they gangrene, there's no other treatment other than to remove that tissue.
So, Dr. Ron Renzi, before we take another break, let's start talking about preventative, how we can prevent gangrene. Because after my diabetic incident, I am greasing up my feet every night and putting on the sweat socks.
Good.
You know what I mean? I'm not wrapping up in saran wrap and all that kind of thing, but my feet at first, I used to laugh because the only time I would pay attention to my feet, if I want to be honest, is the summertime, because I want to wear sandals. But then I don't want to have the old crusty crab feet. I want to get my heels together, and I would go to every now and again I would sneak into the salon and get my feet, the pedicure and that kind of thing. And the little woman would yell at me. She said, "Oh, your feet are so dry. It's so dry. It's so dry." and she would beat me over the head. But that's probably the one time, probably in the beginning of the summertime, that I would really pay attention to my feet, if I'm going to be honest. I pay attention to my feet a lot more winter, spring, summer, fall, all the time. And then one of the things that I've felt or have been told to is to grease the feet. I try to grease my feet nightly.
Yes.
And I try to make sure that when I'm drying my feet, I try to dry them in between the toes. How important is that from a proactive situation?
It's very important. When your feet get dry, you develop little cracks in the skin. The skin gets kind of stiff, and when you step down on it, it doesn't stretch. It dries out. It cracks open. A little bacteria can get in there, create an infection. So you need to keep your feet. The skin on your feet needs to be elastic and supple, and so you need to keep it moisturized to do that. If it dries out, it gets stiff, and it will develop cracks in it rather than stretch when you step down on it. So you need to prevent those cracks because it can cause infection to get inside or fungus to get in that skin, that crack, and that develops in the athlete's foot, which can itself create little sores, and that can lead to bacteria getting in your foot and creating an infection.
So proactively, are there any type of socks or shoes that we should be looking at to wear? You know, what do you recommend?
First of all, if you're diabetic, and first of all, you need to know if you're diabetic, right? We need when you're 40, everybody should be going to the doctors and being tested to see if you are diabetic, and even earlier in your 30s to see if you're pre-diabetic, because we can do that. But as far as shoes, the important thing with shoes are they have to be the right size,
okay,
right? And that's hard to do in today's world because a lot of shoe stores can't really measure you anymore. So we need to have the right size, and then we need to have shoes which are supportive. Usually we recommend lace-up shoes because they provide a little bit more support. Athletic shoes are probably the best in today's world because they're lace-up and they give you some support. But the size is so important. A nice support underneath the arch is really important for you. And then shoes that don't irritate your skin in any way or rub your toes or force your toes into a position they really don't want to go to. So the size is so important.
So the price that we pay for vanity, I'm going to go ahead and put myself out there. Some of us have to look for the W on the shoe.
Yes.
Because I got Fred Flintstone feet.
Yep.
And my feet are fat, so I got to get wide. I got to get wide feet so to be comfortable. Because a lot of these shoes now, because of fashion, are narrow.
Yes.
Older men particularly, if you have to get a certain age, you don't want to squeeze your foot in there. That's dangerous.
Right. Yes.
Because circulation issues.
If you have diabetes, it cuts down on your circulation, and it causes neuropathy, so you lose sensation. And so a tight shoe might rub that toe just a little bit, and you think, it was a little bit tight, that shoe, not a problem. But it causes a little sore, and that sore bacteria gets in there, and it doesn't take long for that bacteria to go from the skin to the bone, and then result in a real serious infection leading to a toe amputation or something like that. So it's really important that you have shoes that don't rub your skin in any way.
Wow. All right, so we're going to take a break. We're going to come back on the other side. We're going to lose Spencer for a little bit, and we're going to bring on the set Dr. Marvin Marcelin. And with him and Dr. Renzi, they're going to give us some more diabetic preventative information, some statistics. And then later on in the show, I'm going to be a patient. They're going to actually take me in and check my pulse and all that kind of thing. So I'm going to be a patient. I signed my HIPAA form, so you guys already know it's fine. I can share with you. Stay tuned. Don't go nowhere.
Always Best Care specializes in helping seniors who wish to remain in their home but need assistance. Our flexible care programs vary from hourly to live-in. Simply put, we're there when you need us. And Always Best Care is an approved Community Health Choices provider. Call today and we'll meet with you to develop a personalized care plan. Always Best Care Senior Services, doing more, caring more, and dedicated to exceeding your expectations. Always.
Always Best Care is a great place to work.
Flexibility,
Leadership, purpose.
Great benefits.
There's never a dull moment.
diversity, inclusion, compasión.
We love our jobs. If you're looking for a great place to work, you can join our compassionate Team Green. You can apply online at teamgreenabc.com or call 267-909-9248.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Did you know?
Welcome back to the Did You Know Show. Joining us on the set now, we have Dr. Marvin Marcelin. Welcome.
Thank you.
Continue our conversation with Dr. Ron Renzi, both podiatrists. I want to give Dr. Marvin Marcelin his propers because, you know, they're getting on my nerves with this ties. Dr. Marvin wears his bow ties all the time, and Dr. Ron is sporting his basketball ties. We're in the middle of March Madness, and we're having a good time. And shout out to the Philadelphia 76ers. They're doing pretty good, too. And we continue to talk about the high percentage of lower extremity amputations in the black and brown community, particularly with men. And during the conversation is Dr. Marcelin. And so one thing we've been talking about kind of subversively is preventative. You know, we talked about shoes and that kind of thing. You know, Spencer Sumter was nice enough to share his story and unfortunately ended up in a toe amputee situation. But when you guys, you know, are out there, what are you telling, what do you tell the world, if you will? When should a podiatrist get into your routine as healthcare? When is it good to really kind of figure that out?
As soon as they're diagnosed as diabetes or diabetic, they need to see a podiatrist and have visits periodically from then on. Once they develop diabetes, most people, we have them come in every 3 months to check their feet for circulation changes, neuropathy changes, things like that. But once they're diagnosed with diabetes, they need to come in on a regular basis. We evaluate their shoes, evaluate how they walk, a lot of different things. But once they're diabetic, they need to, because diabetes is the leading risk factor for an amputation. 70% of the amputees in the Delaware Valley are diabetic. So if you have diabetes, it's a marker for amputation. So you need to have special care to prevent that from happening.
You guys are open to the public. You have a practice in downtown Abington, and I was just so if you're looking at the bottom of the screen, you can contact Dr. Renzi or Dr. Marcelin. They are in practice together in Abington. They work alongside of Abington, which is a part of the Jefferson family. And you guys are really, really working with the Save Your Souls campaign. So, Dr. Marcelin, tell us about Save Your Souls. What is it all about?
So, just like what Dr. Renzi was describing all throughout, Save Your Souls is a campaign aimed at doing exactly what it says, saving your souls. We care about preventing amputations. We care about providing overall good foot health to all of our patients. And it's one of those things where the little things go a long way.
Okay. And you know, when you talk about the little things, you know, you're talking to us. Because, you know, us as men, not necessarily black or white or brown, you know, men, we are slow to really address health concerns or really have routine maintenance. And Save Your Souls is a campaign that came out of you guys seeing a lot of amputees, particularly in the black community. Now, later in the show, I've been promising, I'm gonna let them, you know, I'm gonna be the actual patient. So you guys that are out there thinking about what's gonna happen, what should you see, what is it gonna be like, you'll see the whole, you know, I'm gonna let them examine me from the foot down, what it's all about. They're gonna, you know, Dr. Ron or Dr. Marcelin are gonna take my pulse, and then you guys said you're gonna run a test. What kind of test are you gonna run? What are we gonna call, what's the test called?
It's an ultrasound. It'll listen to the blood flow into your foot.
Oh, wow. So you can, and I learned when you were on the show, you did it right in the studio, you can take my pulse from my foot. Is that right?
Right. You can take your pulse with we can feel it with your fingers, but even better is to actually feel it and then actually listen to it.
And a faint pulse is a sign of what?
Poor circulation, so not enough blood is going down to your foot. So if you get a little cut, it won't heal. And then if it doesn't heal, it gets infected, and the whole process starts over. So diabetics are very prone to poor circulation. The sugar clogs up the arteries in your legs, and less blood flow goes down there. So we need to measure that, know that. If you're getting bad circulation, we keep a closer eye on you, make sure you don't have any problems. But it's important to know, so that every diabetic should have that evaluated at least once a year. Their pulses and the sound of blood flow into their foot needs to be evaluated at least once a year if they're diabetic.
Wow. And so we got into, you know, briefly, you were talking about the tie-up shoes and that kind of thing, but, you know, am I doing the right thing, Dr. Marcelin? Am I doing the right thing by greasing my feet every night? Is that overkill? What?
No, it's not overkill. It's very important for your feet to be hydrated.
Okay.
And the thing that I tell my patients, and I kind of stress it, is when you are moisturizing your feet, just pay attention in between the toes.
The toe jammies. You don't want to develop?
Because if you think about it, like the space in between the toes is very, very narrow.
Okay.
So we're always wearing shoes, or at least for the most part, and that area tends to build up with sweat, for example, and it doesn't have the extra air to air out, to dry up. So something I tell my patients all the time, think of it like this. If you took your hand and you put it into a bucket of water, you kept it into that bucket for about 15 to 20 minutes. If you take it out, you look at your hand, it looks like, I call it pruny, where the hand is a little waterlogged, it looks a little whiter than normal.
Right.
When that happens, believe it or not, your skin is a little bit weaker. And so it could split. And so just like what Dr. Renzi was saying earlier, if there's any fissure or a split, that is bringing an opportunity for microbes on the outside of your skin, and we all have them. It's perfectly natural to have microbes on your skin, but you want that barrier to protect the outside from coming inside. And so that's one reason why we want to say, just be careful when applying the moisturizing agents in between your toes every day.
Wow. If you just tuned in, my name is Brian Green, and today's show is sponsored by Always Best Care Senior Services. And we're sitting here on set in the practice of Dr. Ron Renzi and Dr. Marvin Marcelin. And we are talking about really, I guess the theme of this is how to reduce lower extremity of amputations. Not just in the black community, but unfortunately in the black community they are, you said 20% higher?
3 times higher than white men. So black men suffer major amputations, so a leg, 3 times more often than a white man in the Delaware Valley. It's a pretty high disparity.
We learned about gangrene, that's the deadness of cells, of skin cells.
Yes.
And so if my brothers out there, and I say brothers, I mean white and black, the whole spectrum, men, when you start to smell and you see your skin turning black, it's time, hopefully you don't get to that point, but it's time to go see somebody, particularly a podiatrist. And is it safe to say, if after 40, you really should go get tested and make sure that you're not a diabetic?
Yes.
And if you are a diabetic, make sure that when you get that nutritionist, you also get a podiatrist. It's just as important.
Just as important.
And so save your souls. What are we doing? What are we going to? Because we're going to have some more community fairs. You haven't seen the last of these 2 doctors. They're phenomenal people, and I've known Dr. Renzi for a little while now. Shout out to Angela Stewart who connected us. But because I am a diabetic, this is very personal to me. This show, I was really looking forward to it, and I am also at the end, hopefully, of my recovery from my diabetic incident. But to avoid stuff like that going forward, I'm going to take all the advice that we have. We're going to take a quick break, and I'm going to let these gentlemen, these doctors, examine me. I'm a little nervous, but I'll get through it. And I'm really confident that'll be more of an exploratory for a lot of people out there watching. I'm willing to show you what it is to get your foot examined and how important it is to get examined. Luckily for me, I did grease my feet, so I'm not going to have the crocodile toes. I knew that this might be coming up, so I'm prepared. And before I go, I gotta shout out Dr. Renzi, with the tie, with the basketball tie. He went and got a basketball tie. We're avid basketball fans, and I'm just glad that he could be here. Okay, stay tuned. When we come back on the other side, you're going to see me in the exam room, and I'm going to get an examination on my feet. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss this.
Did you know?
Always Best Care specializes in helping seniors who wish to remain in their home but need assistance. Our flexible care programs vary from hourly to live-in. Simply put, we're there when you need us. And Always Best Care is an approved Community Health Choices provider. Call today and we'll meet with you to develop a personalized care plan. Always Best Care Senior Services, doing more, caring more, and dedicated to exceeding your expectations. Always.
Always Best Care is a great place to work.
Flexibility.
Leadership. Purpose.
Great benefits.
There's never a dull moment.
Diversity. Inclusion. Compasión.
We love our jobs. If you're looking for a great place to work, you can join our compassionate Team Green. You can apply online at teamgreenabc.com or call 267-909-9248.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Did you know?
So we're back. I'm in the examination room of Dr. Ron Renzi and Dr. Marvin Marcelin. They're going to do a examination on my feet, my footses. But I want to also tell the viewing audience, all three of us have been vaccinated. So we've relaxed our masks. We are fully vaccinated in here. And we, normally would practice social distancing, but when you're a frontline worker, a frontline responder, you do get close to your patients. So this is what it is. But just wanted, because people might be out there judging us. So I did have my Sixers, I don't know where I put it at. I had again, shout out to the 76ers. I am a Philadelphia 76ers fan. But we put down our masks because we are fully vaccinated. All right. So take us through the examination of what is about to happen, Dr. Marvin.
All right, so today, no need to be concerned. It's laid back, relax.
Okay.
In fact, there's an arm board over there. I want you to put it down, feel at home. Okay, so what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be doing a lower extremity Doppler test. So I'm going to be listening to the flow of blood in your feet.
Okay.
So just like in our wrist, one could feel for your pulse in the wrist.
Right.
As podiatrists, we can do the same thing in the feet. Without being specific, there's pretty much two major arteries that I'm actively going to feel first. After I feel them, I want to be able to know, are the pulses good? Are they reliable? I also want to listen to them too. So after I feel for the pulses, I'm going to go ahead and use a Doppler, and I'm going to listen to them as well. And this is something that I want the patients to hear too, because it's another way of reiterating the importance of the blood flow, and then it's a way for the patients to know as well if they're getting ample blood flow to their feet.
Okay. Is it going to be a needle?
No needles. No needles.
No needle. Okay.
No needles.
And I needed to say that for the people that are out there thinking, because first thing I thought was, oh God, will be needles, but okay, no needles. Okay, cool.
All right, let me tilt you up a little bit.
Okay. All right.
Comfortable?
Yes.
Okay. So that first artery that I'm feeling for, it's called the dorsalis pedis, and it's one of the major arteries that goes down the foot. And as I'm feeling for you, I can feel it. So you have a very strong pulse right here. So that's definitely good news.
Okay.
Then I'm going to move over to the inside of the foot. You might not be able to see it from where your vantage point is, but there's a pulse that runs along the inside of the foot. And this is the tibialis posterior pulse. And again, I can feel that pulse for you as well. And funny little thing, if you can see that there's hair on your feet, that's telling me that you have enough blood flow for hair to grow. So that's another good sign that ample blood flow is reaching your lower extremities. So these are all good signs that podiatrists are looking for when we're doing a foot exam.
Okay.
I know I said I was going to do the Doppler exam first, but I also want to just keep it going. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check for sensations.
Okay.
Something that we talked about before is if one does not have ample blood flow to their lower extremities in their feet, you start to have changes in their sensations to your feet over time. So something I'm going to do is I'm going to check for, we call it protective sensations.
Okay.
And I'm going to use something that looks like a little piece of plastic.
Okay.
I often say it's like a little fishing wire. It
Okay.
doesn't hurt. I
Okay.
tested on I show you, it doesn't hurt, it's very flimsy.
Okay.
So what I do is I ask the patient not to cheat, so you gotta close your eyes.
Okay.
And I'm gonna lightly touch the bottom of your feet in various places.
Okay.
Every time you feel something, all I want you to do is tell me yes.
Okay.
All right, so you ready to start?
I am.
Okay.
Yes. 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 Yes.
So, we're done with the protective sensation of your right foot.
Okay.
So, believe it or not, there are individuals who don't have that sensation. Granted, this is very flimsy, it's very light, but
Okay.
this is a way of determining whether or not little things like maybe you're walking and a little rock or a little pebble gets lodged in your shoe.
Uh-huh.
So with someone who's fully sensate, chances are they're probably going to stop at some point and say, there's something bothering me. Let me stop. Let me take my shoe off, flip it around so that pebble falls out. If you don't have sensation, something as simple as that, you don't know. And so you could walk for hours at a time with something slowly but surely digging in the bottom of your foot, and you would never know to take it out.
Okay.
Another random thing that I like to tell my patients, something as simple as if I were to just tap your foot in the same place for months, you would develop a sore.
Oh.
So it's not something that is as difficult or as strong as you would think that could develop into a wound.
Okay.
Something very mundane and subtle, but consistent in the same place over and over and over can progress into developing sores. So this is why it's important to have these modalities and these little tests to check and make sure that the sensation and everything is present.
One thing that we talked about too, how important it is for maybe the podiatrist to cut your nails. As you can see, I look like I bit my nails off. And I just did that not too long ago out of nerves. How important for specifically for a diabetic? How important it is for a podiatrist to be the one to cut the nails?
Yeah, we think it's very important for a podiatrist to cut the nails of individuals who are diabetic.
Okay.
And the reason for that is, things happen, right? So let's say you're cutting your nails, you're very proficient, you're very good at it. But what happens if you accidentally nick yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have the right things at home to clean the area off, make sure that the presence of infection will be at bay, make sure that you can stop the bleeding as well? These are things that we have at our disposal in the podiatry office all the time.
Okay.
Next thing, we're very comfortable with doing it. We're at the foot. So our angle, our vantage point is much, much easier. So it's not a burden on us to do it at all. Sometimes patients say, well, I don't want to bother you, like cutting the nails feels like it's so mundane. It's okay. This is what we do. We are very adept to it. We enjoy doing it, and this is part of what we do for a living.
And the nails can get gangrene too? Is that right?
So if you cut your nails too short and you cause bleeding,
mm-hmm.
that could cause a wound that leads to infection, and then that infection could lead to gangrene if you don't have ample blood flow to the lower extremities.
Okay.
So there is a pathway for that, and you do hear of some horror stories sometimes where a diabetic at home, they're managing their own feet, they cut their nails, they might have nicked themselves, mm-hmm. and after a period of time that leads to infection, which leads to amputations. That does happen. And to mitigate those chances, going to a podiatrist is a great way to prevent something like that from happening.
Okay. All right, so we're going to put the gel on me now and all that kind of good stuff?
Yes, indeed. So
it's not going to sting, right?
Not going to sting.
No sting.
So there's no sting. It's not going to affect your skin in any way.
All right.
So
somebody out there was thinking the same thing. That's why I had to ask for the people. I had to ask for a friend.
All right.
All right, so this is the gel for the ultrasound.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to put some of the gel on.
Okay.
And then I'm going to move on to using my Doppler.
Okay.
So again, the Doppler is an ultrasound machine that listens to the flow within the lower extremities.
And you're listening to make sure that I'm getting good circulation down there.
Yes.
Is that the pulse?
That's the pulse.
Wow.
Very strong.
Okay.
You're doing well.
Okay.
All right, so that's the dorsalis pedis.
Okay.
Now I'm going to move on to the posterior tibial.
Okay.
And I'm basically doing the same thing. I'm going to apply some of the ultrasound gel.
Okay.
It's good.
Very strong.
All right. So we're gonna do both feet, or just one is enough?
So all diabetics have to have that sound in their foot.
Okay.
All right, so let's move on to the next one.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay. I'm like up in here. I'm really nervous. I don't know why.
So you want it to be good, and
I
you're
want it
kind
to
of
be
like
good,
you're
right,
holding
right.
your breath, waiting for it to sound.
Woo.
Right? Yeah. You get really.
So for my viewing audience, there's two different places where your pulse can be checked out on your feet. Because normally when you're watching the movies, normally they you see them grabbing their neck. You don't see them grabbing their feet. But this is just behind the scenes. Not so much behind the scenes, but.
Great.
All right. Okay, I'm gonna play the devil's advocate. If it wasn't great, then what would be the recommendation, or what would you tell us to do?
Well, if it's not good, then we have you send. This is a screening test. If it's not good, we send you to the hospital for a formal vascular study, which is not a big deal. But they put blood pressure cuffs and they measure the amount of blood pressure and the amount of blood going into your foot.
When I was in the hospital just recently, so that I didn't develop blood clots, they had some braces around my legs to squeeze and squeeze and let it go and squeeze some more and that kind of a thing. So, okay, so Save Your Souls. I see on here that you guys have done some stuff with the Joy of Socks, and then the Face-to-Face Human Service Organization, and Chi Eta Pi sorority is a nursing sorority. I know that for a fact. Shout out to Sharon and Renee and all the people that I know that are part of that. They used to beat me up at the health fair over at Praise is the Cure. Shout out to Praise is the Cure. But they won't this year because my diabetes is, for now, knock on some, my numbers are in line. But tell us a little bit about, what the Joy of Socks is and, the Face-to-Face Human Service Organization. What does that mean exactly? What are you guys doing? I'm looking at your brochure now.
Face-to-Face provides meals to homeless people.
Okay.
They've been there for about 30 years now. They're in Germantown, and they provide meals and legal services. And they have a wellness clinic there that we participate in. We examine people's feet, check their circulation, and we provide some socks and some other things if they need that. We can get some. Sometimes we can get them shoes and things like that. So Face-to-Face is a great organization, a nonprofit that's been there for 30 years. Joy of Socks is a nonprofit that collects socks from various companies, Bombas and a couple other companies. They collect socks and then they give it out to other nonprofits like Save Your Souls, Face-to-Face, and we distribute it to homeless men and people who need it.
And so I couldn't help but to notice in your brochure, Black men lose legs to diabetes, average major amputation rates by race in the Delaware Valley, and this statistic was from 2017 to 2019. And then I don't know if you can do a zoom on it or not, but it says this bar is for black males, this is for black females, this is for white males, and this is for white females. So as you can see, black males, as we've talked throughout the conversation, have the highest rate of losing limbs.
Yes, that chart is major amputation. So that's limbs, not just toes. That's limbs.
Limbs.
Specifically limbs. If we added toes in there, the numbers go up much higher.
Wow.
This is limbs
From
diabetes.
I like this. Don't foul out. You got the whole everything to basketball or sports. Diabetic needs doctors just like athletes need coaches to keep them on their game. Schedule a regular checkup at least every 3 months. Don't wait until your next checkup if you notice any of the following. And I'm reading there, don't foul out. So if you notice skin or nail change color, an area of your foot feels warm to the touch, skin begins to crack or bleed, you are injured or find a cut on your foot. So again, I don't wish amputation on anybody, but preventative care, is worth it. And Dr. Marcelin, you made a good analogy, and I want you to come back to it. Like if you take your car in, you check the engine, make sure it's going. If your body's your temple, because you hear a lot of people say my body's my temple, you gotta make sure. What say you?
Yeah. So the same premise. Your body's your temple. Your body's the most important machine that you have. So I'm sure a lot of the gentlemen and people out there have vehicles, and to go to the mechanic and get your checkup. In fact, if you have a car in the state of Pennsylvania, you need to get an emissions test. If we do that much for our cars, why not do the same for our bodies? We need to make sure that we have our tune-up, if you will, for ourselves, to make sure that we take good care of ourselves and keep ourselves in the game.
And so we've been talking with Dr. Ron Renzi and Dr. Marvin Marcelin. As we wind down the show, we're definitely going to do some things with you guys in the future. I just can't wait to get you into the community centers again when the COVID lifts up. And again, I want to say to my viewing audience, we are vaccinated. And I can't thank them enough for letting me come into their practice and really give us a lot of information. Dr. Ron Renzi, Dr. Marvin Marcelin, two very nice gentlemen, and they're very friendly doctors, and they take their time with their patients, and they're just people that not only are practicing medicine, but they're in the community. And because they're in the community, they have recognized, unfortunately, that there is a high rate of amputee and limb loss in the Delaware Valley. Black men are at a higher rate, or higher risk. And so I'm just going to tell you to make sure you get yourself checked out. Thank you for the exam. I am signing out. This is Brian Green, the host of the Did You Know Show. Don't forget to check me out on WURD Radio at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturdays. And thank you again, Dr. Ron and Dr. Marvin. I appreciate you guys. I got to get my tie game together.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for having us.
Right on. Thank you so
my
much.
pleasure.
Did you know he'll help you understand? Did you know always a right-hand man? Did you know he's gonna make it